Bill Belichick apparently does not miss Tom Brady. He held a conference call prior to the draft on Tuesday, and Brady's name came up, obviously, because it was the first time Belichick spoke to reporters since Tom Brady chose to leave the Patriots and sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And one of the questions that still lingers is, did the Patriots want Tom Brady back anyway? And that was a question that was posed to Belichick. Did you want Brady back in 2020? And here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I think that's, a lot of water under the bridge, Mike. And like I said, we're really focused on this season and trying to look at our opportunities and make decisions and plan and prepare to be as competitive as we can be this year. So that's really what our focus is on.
First of all, that sounded impressive because he said my name, but I wasn't the Mike he was answering. It was presumably Mike Reese of ESPN.com. I had a little moment there where I thought, I'm just going to let that go and let people think that he was talking specifically to me. But we need to be transparent. We need to be honest. We need to be candid. It wasn't me, Chris.
No, it wasn't you, but I thought the same thing nonetheless. But, what did you expect any other answer from a guy like Bill Belichick? I mean, this is one of the most focused individuals we've ever seen in professional sports. I mean, this is a guy that's famous for being on the plane ride back for the Super Bowl and not even discussing the game, already on to next year and talking about moves he's going to have to make within the coaching staff and players and whatever it may be and scheduling the offseason. So, again, Belichick, I do think wanted Brady back. I do. I just don't think he was going to, break the bank to get Brady back. I think there was a line that could not be crossed, and I think that was the big thing. And that's usually the case with Belichick. He's business as always with just about everybody. Go ahead, yeah.
What do you think the line was? What do you think he was willing to pay him?
I'm going to say it was somewhere like 20, maybe 23, maybe. I'm going to say around that 18 to 20 mark, though. I don't think he wanted to go anywhere near 25 or get into the 30 range.
I know our buddy Tom Curran of NBC Sports Boston is a believer that the Patriots were standing on whatever offer they made to Brady last August that he basically laughed at, and they were waiting for Brady to counter that they weren't going to make a new offer, and Brady never countered it. So that's kind of how Belichick finds some sort of a safe harbor in this whole breakdown of communication. From their perspective, an offer was on the table, and Brady never responded to it, so they never had a chance to engage him and get to that number. Whatever that number was, if it was close or not close, we never knew because they never actually had a negotiation, Chris.
Well, I think this tells you a little bit more that, one, probably Brady was a little bit disrespected by the contract offer, but also I think that just shows another inkling that, he had it. He just had it. He was worn out by the organization, the tactics of Belichick, the fact that he feels like he's probably underpaid and underappreciated for a number amount of years. And I think that's why you heard him say last week in the Howard Stern interview that he probably knew before the 2019 season that he wanted to move on, or that it was done nonetheless. Because of that offer, I'm sure that told him a lot.
And Belichick has mastered the art of saying nothing. Obviously, that's not news to anyone who has paid attention to him. But before Brady leaves, if he's asked about Brady and whether or not Brady's going to be with the team next year, all he has to say is, well, that none of that matters. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm thinking about right now. I'm thinking about making the team better. And then once he's gone, well, that's water under the bridge. You never have to talk about it, right? It reminds me of Bill Polian when he was with the Colts and a season ended poorly, and he was asked questions about the season and how it ended, and he had some stupid line like, the past is prologue. There's no point talking about it. Well, yes, there is. And it is amazing to me how so many of these guys in football, just through sheer force of their personality, will, with a straight face, pull off not having to talk about anything, Chris, that they just don't want to talk about.
No, well, I mean, they're just afraid to let anybody look under the hood and know how they're running their organization, And then with this case, with Bill Belichick, yeah, he's extremely detailed. He does things differently than the rest of football. He doesn't want anybody to know what he's thinking or what his plan of attack was. And that's just the way he runs business, But, I think at the end of the day with Belichick and Brady, I mean, The one thing that just jumps out to me is how many times during the season last year we got little inklings that Brady might not be, it doesn't sound like Brady will be back. I didn't believe it. I thought when it all came down to it that Brady would be back in New England and he would just go, man, do I really want to make this switch or not? But obviously, we're starting to connect dots and see more and more things here to where, yeah, it's not a fractured relationship, but it just came to the end. And I think, Brady was just exhausted of Belichick and that way of life.
How much do you think that undercurrent impacted the performance of the team last year, if at all?
I don't. I mean, I don't think it did. Mike, what do you think? I mean, when I just look at it, I go, these are two guys that really can stay on task, have laser focus. They do. Now, again, is Belichick a master in military tactics and mental welfare? Yes, definitely. But I think more times than not, it gets the best out of players and people within the organization. And I don't think Brady is the kind of guy that would let that affect his play. He holds himself to a standard. That's the thing I love about Tom Brady. I mean, he expects greatness from himself, on a weekly basis, yearly basis, whatever that may be. He's putting the pressure on himself again for 2020. I just think, no, they were, a little inadequate on the offensive side of the ball last year, didn't have the right weapons. And, of course, Brady, for the first time, I think, showed his age a little bit towards the end of the season.
And I ask that because we saw a little flash of humanity last week from Tom Brady during that 2-hour interview with Howard Stern. And the normal human being, and there isn't much about Tom Brady that would fall into the normal human being category, but the normal human being, when that person feels the train pulling into the station at a given job, in a given place, dealing with a given boss, it is more difficult, Chris. It's easy to give in to the, hell, I'm not going to be here much longer anyway. Who cares? And you just have to wonder how much harder Brady did have to focus in his preparation, in everything that he did to finish the right way. And when we look at the results of the season, there's evidence to point to say, it didn't finish the right way because it didn't finish the way that it had the past several years for the Patriots. They didn't get out of the wild card round, for crying out loud. They'd been to the AFC Championship game every season since 2011. There was something very different about last year. And it's hard to not at least wonder whether Brady's mindset that I'm out of here after this season, did it at some moment, did he study film as much as he should have before a critical late regular season game that would have determined whether or not they had a bye? The Dolphins game, for example. I mean, it's impossible to put the trail of breadcrumbs together.
Yeah, right.
But the big picture is the Patriots were far below their standard last year, even though they started 8-0.
No, I mean, Mike, you make a lot of good points. I think those points would hold up to like most humans, like you're saying, but this isn't most humans. Do I think Brady at some point during the season, late in the year, was probably like, man, they don't appreciate me. Damn, I got a lot of young weapons around me that are inexperienced. This is tough sledding. I mean, this is crazy what they've done to me this year. Yes, I am sure that he had some thoughts like that. But I still think this is a New England team that even after they lost to Miami week 17, they thought they were Super Bowl caliber. And hey, listen, this had to come to an end at some point. I mean, it's one of the greatest runs we've seen in the history of professional sports, what they just went through. The Super Bowl runs, the AFC championships, and still, even last year, just listen to us. We're talking about a team and going, man, it didn't work out well and they didn't play well. And they were 8-0 at one point. And, of course, sitting there ready for home field advantage or at least the number 2 seed and blew that. So, I just think the time had come for the team, and they're a little bit of a rebuild mode, as we're seeing right now. They're changing over to their next phase of life there in New England.
And I'm not going to suggest that Bill Belichick was operating 5 levels higher than he ordinarily does, but I will say this. He's smart enough to sense that Tom Brady was on his way out weeks before Tom Brady was out. And as a practical matter, it makes it easier for the Patriots to move on without Brady if Brady isn't walking away after taking the team to the Super Bowl yet again. Not that
Definitely.
not that Belichick didn't want to get to the Super Bowl again, but it makes it easier for the Patriots to remove the Band-Aid because the fans saw what happened last year. And if you get to a Super Bowl and win it again, it would have been a hell of a lot harder to turn the page on Tom Brady.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.